So welcome for our class again today, and good evening, Rahma and Nzasu. I hope my pronunciation is correct. Again, you may want to correct me if I don't clearly get where we stopped, but I think we're going to look at I think we looked at the overview of Public Finance Management Act. That was under public finance. Now, for those who are there at the very first lesson, we said this subject is called public finance and taxation. So it has components of public finance and components of taxation. And I did say that we are going to have a strategy to complete both public finance and taxation, where I did mention that for the first lessons, the coming weeks in January, we will dwell on public finance, or when February comes, I'll introduce taxation for one of the lessons and continue with public finance in the second lesson. Probably we could introduce taxation in the Sunday lesson, keep public finance for the Saturday lesson until we are through with the topics on public finance. Then we can merge the two lessons and continue with public finance. Then again, if I remember correctly, we must have left it at the point where we are going to look at the process of developing the finance bill at the county, process of developing the county finance bill. I hope I'm right on that. Process of developing county government finance bill. Process of developing county government finance bill. I think something else, I've already shared the soft copy notes. So as we discuss, you can also be reading, doing your own reading. You can even read ahead of me in the notes. So today we start from here. So what is a finance bill? A finance bill are the details of the budget before it's debated by the county assembly and passed. Once it's debated by the county assembly, it becomes the Finance Act. So the Finance Act becomes now the budget that is implemented. Like now, the national government is implementing the Finance Act 2023-2024. The counties are also implementing their Finance Act 2023-2024. But before we get it to the point of being an act, it is a bill. So as we get the bill ready, we have certain processes. That's why we are talking about a process. We have certain processes that will guide events that lead to passage of the bill into an act of the county assembly, which is then implemented. So the first process, which guides in making a finance bill of the county, the first process is called county treasury. County treasury. County treasury to prepare. County fiscal strategy paper. So we call this CF County Fiscal Strategy. CF CFSP, like that. Now, the county treasury is a very important institution at the county government level, just like the national treasury is also a very important institution. Now, the county treasury comprises of offices that manage both economic and financial matters at the county. So preparing a county fiscal strategy paper is a finance matter. So the county fiscal strategy paper is will comprise of a number of things. So in that CFSP, the county treasury will include things like strategic priorities. So in the CFSP, they include strategic priorities. And also policy. So in any budget making process, a budget, even for households, must be guided by priorities. Why? Because of resources. We use the word scarcity, probably in economics. Scarcity means you cannot have enough. So you must be guided by picking priorities because you cannot pay for everything. So it is the county treasury that will identify the strategic priorities, which, by the way, are also in the county development plan. So later on, we'll talk about the county development plan. So the county will have its strategic priorities. An example of a strategic priority could be universal healthcare. The county could be having a priority to provide healthcare to every member of the county. Or county could have food security as its strategic priority for a particular finance year. Or a county could have development of human resources, training, like our counties in Garissa and in Wajir for many years, their priority is education. So they've been writing bursary checks, supporting students from that area by paying full fees and so on in different institutions. Those are what we call strategic priorities because a county does not have all the resources they need. So the county treasury must state in this document called County Fiscal Strategy Paper, they must put the priorities. Now, what are policy goals? Policy goals are limits, measures. Matters of policy are matters you cannot negotiate. So the county executive committee could have agreed on measures, on boundaries. For example, they would have agreed that they are going to limit trips, especially outside the country, in order to save on resources. So these policy goals will also be included in the county fiscal strategy plan. Now, together with that, the county treasury must align. They must align their CFSP with what the national government is doing. So the county treasury must align CFSP with I think with the policy goals at the national, with the national objectives, in the budget policy statement. So BPS is just a mirror image of what is produced at the national government. So all the counties produce a fiscal strategy paper, a county fiscal strategy paper. At the national level, the same document is called budget policy statement. Because we are in the same country, even though counties are meant to be independent or autonomous, but work together in the spirit of devolution through consultation, coordination, so we consult. So because of that, every county must try to align their county fiscal strategy with the national objectives. For example, you'll find counties also getting involved with affordable housing projects. Counties also getting involved with prioritizing food security and so on. What else will be contained in this CFSP? It will have forecasts. Forecast of revenue, expenditure, and borrowing. So the county fiscal strategy paper will also have projections, forecasts. These are estimates. And by the way, the CFSP is made by the date of 28th of February every year. So it's made early in the year, and they're trying to forecast what is likely to be the revenues of the county, the expenditure, and the likely borrowing. It doesn't have to be accurate. These are just forecasts. So this forecast will also be included in the CFSP. Also included in the CFSP will be, I think I've done the financial forecast of financial output. This will be some of the contents of the county fiscal strategy. Now, all these will provide guidelines when the budget making process begins. For example, when you're budgeting, the county must think in terms of what are the priority areas of spending? What are the policy goals? The county must also think about the objectives set by the national government, just for guidelines to align. So as you're making your county fiscal strategy, you also think about the objectives of the national government. Then they'll give an outlook, a forecast, or let me call it a financial outlook. It's an outlook, financial outlook. These are projections of revenue, expenditure, and borrowing at the county government. So this is the first process done by the county treasurer. Now, since these guidelines are very important, these guidelines will first be submitted to the county executive committee. Remember, the executive committee is the cabinet at the county. It's made up of the governor, the deputy governor, and the CECs, county executive committee members. So the county treasury will submit the county fiscal strategy paper to the county executive committee by 28th of February. After its approval, it will be submitted to the county assembly. Once the county assembly has debated and approved it, this document or these proposals will be published, probably put in the Kenya Gazette, then publicized. To publicize means they'll be widely circulated. Most probably, the county might put it in their website so that it circulates as widely as possible. Now, this will be the first part of the process. Next, the county treasury will prepare still. County treasury will prepare county budget review. Budget review and outlook paper. Outlook. This is called the CBROE. Now, this other assignment for the county treasury will come by 30th of September every year. This one will come by 30th September. Now, it's called a review because first it will review the previous year's county fiscal strategy paper. It will review, like the county treasury has to prepare a review which will be submitted to the county assembly and the county executive committee, considering last year's county fiscal strategy paper and discuss deviations. For example, what was the actual fiscal performance, like performance of the budget, compared to the budget appropriation? The budget appropriation is the funding that was approved by the county assembly to be withdrawn and spent for programs and for public services. So the county treasury must review, how did we perform? What was the actual performance compared to the budgetary appropriation? So this will be a review. Review actual fiscal performance compared to the budget appropriation. The county treasury will provide a review, for example, if there was any deviation from the financial objectives in last year's county fiscal strategy paper. When money was spent, did they deviate from the objectives that were set last year? So this review will also check any deviation from financial objectives, of previous financial objectives of previous years CFSP. And if there was any deviation, are there reasons? Why is it there was any deviation? Also, it will look at deviation from, it's called fiscal responsibility principles. So deviations from financial objectives of the previous year's CFSP and fiscal responsibility principles. So let me explain. So far, we've been able to talk about principles of public finance. I hope you still remember them, like accountability, public participation, equitable distribution of tax burden, equitable distribution of debt burden and benefits between the current and future generations, and so on. Those are principles of public finance, which we extract from the Constitution, from Chapter 12. Then there are other principles, we call them fiscal responsibility principles. Now, these are principles for budgeting. For example, the first principle of budgeting is this. Anytime there's a budget of either a county or the national government, it is a requirement of this principle that 30% minimum of the budget should be allocated to development expenditure. So there's a difference between recurrent expenditure and development expenditure. Recurrent expenditure is expenditure to pay for day-to-day services, like paying salaries for workers, like paying for health services, paying for education services. All those are recurrent expenditures and they are good. However, these principles, the word fiscal refers to budgeting. Fiscal responsibility principles or responsible budgeting require that when you budget funds, make sure every time minimum 30% is allocated to development. So development expenditure will mean you allocate funding to acquire a capital asset, like a capital road, put up a hospital facility, put up a bridge. Those are capital expenditures. So both national and county government are required that every time they budget, minimum 30% should go to development. So in this review, those are some of the things the Treasury will review. By the way, did you spend a minimum of 30% in development expenditure? If not, why? Then they should also tell the county assembly any proposals to address that. What do you propose? What does Treasury propose to address that deficiency and the timelines, the time frame? How long will it take to correct that? Another fiscal responsibility principle says debt should not exceed the limit that has been set by the county assembly at the county and by parliament at the national government level. So, for example, our national debt is currently more than 10 trillion and it's increasing every day. I just saw this week, the World Bank again lent money to Kenya, you know, huge amount of money, almost $150 million or something, you know, just this week. So the debt is piling, but according to fiscal responsibility principles, even when you're borrowing, don't exceed the limit that have been set. I don't know if Parliament had reviewed the limit. The limit for the national government had previously been set at 10 trillion. But now we're exceeding 10 trillion. County assemblies also have limits like that. These are called fiscal responsibility principles. Another fiscal responsibility principle is borrowing cannot be for recurrent expenditure, cannot be for payment of salaries and wages. You cannot borrow money from the bank to pay salaries. These principles don't allow that. Okay, so in the county budget review and outlook paper, the Treasury will be reporting to the county of events last year and in the current year. For example, for last year, what was our performance compared to the money that was appropriated? What was the actual fiscal performance? Secondly, did we manage to achieve the financial objectives that were set in last year's county fiscal strategy paper? And if there was deviation from the financial objectives, what were the reasons why? Then how do we propose a Treasury to address that? And what are the time frames? Again, did we comply with the fiscal responsibility principles for budgeting? For example, was a minimum of 30% of the budget used for development expenditure? Or was borrowing strictly for development? Or did we keep within the limits of borrowing set by the county assembly? And so on. Something else that Treasury will indicate in the review is an update Remember, the county fiscal strategy paper, this first one, was prepared by the 28th of February. These are budget calendar dates. The CFSP is prepared by the 28th of February. This other one is prepared by the 30th of September. So by 30th of September, the Treasury should review the financial outlook that had been made at the beginning of the year. For example, is there changes? Do we have an update? Do we have changes in the financial outlook that had been projected in the CFSP that was made earlier in the year? What are the updates by September? Any change in revenue, any change in expenditure, any change in borrowing, and so on. So the county budget review and outlook paper, the examiner, if he has to ask you a question on any of these processes, he'll ask you what are the components, or what are some of the things you find in a county fiscal strategy paper. Can you explain three contents? Yeah, contents. What are the contents of the CFSP? So you tell the examiner, in the CFSP, you'll have financial outlook of revenue, expenditure and borrowing. You'll have financial objectives. You'll have strategic priorities. You'll have you'll have policy goals of the county. What are the contents of a county budget review and outlook paper? A review of the actual fiscal performance in the previous year compared to budget appropriation. What other content? It also has a review of the financial objectives and whether there was any deviation with those financial objectives and the fiscal responsibility principles. Another content, proposals. Proposals on how to address any deviation from the financial objectives and from the fiscal responsibility principles, and so on. So that is the county budget review and outlook paper. So if you check later or even now on page 25, you'll find some of the contents. The county treasury will prepare a county budget review and outlook paper each financial year. Then it will submit this document by 30th September, which are indicated here. And here are the contents. What are the contents of a county budget review? The details of the actual fiscal performance, which I was telling you, what was the actual fiscal performance in the previous year compared to the budget appropriation. Appropriation means how much was approved as money to be withdrawn from the county public funds for expenditure. So compared to the money that was approved, permitted to be withdrawn, what was the actual fiscal performance? B, the updated economic and financial forecasts. Remember, this one comes by 30th of September. So what is the update? The updated economic and financial forecast with sufficient information to show changes. Were there any changes from the forecasts in the earlier county fiscal strategy paper? Then any information on any changes in the forecast compared with the county fiscal strategy paper? Then how the actual financial performance for the previous financial year may have affected compliance with either fiscal responsibility principles or financial objectives. And then last component, any reasons. So what are the reasons? So Treasury will report to the County Assembly any reasons for deviating, for not performing according to the financial objectives and according to the fiscal responsibility principles, and then make proposals. How do we correct this? What are the proposals and what are the time frames? So reasons for any deviation from the financial objectives in the county fiscal strategy paper, together with proposals to address the deviation and the time estimated for doing so. So that is what we call the county budget review and outlook paper. So far, we've looked at two preparations for submission done by the county treasury. The first one is county fiscal strategy paper by 28th of February. Probably the examiner might not even expect you to remember the dates. What I've seen him frequently examine, he'll tell you that the county treasury is required to prepare a county fiscal strategy paper by 28th of February each year. Then he tells you what are the contents, or can you explain 4 contents of a county fiscal strategy paper. Then he'll also tell you a county treasury prepares the county budget review and outlook paper, CBROP, by 30th September each year. Can you explain 5 contents of the county budget review and outlook paper? Okay, the next process we talk about is again very important. Is about debt. So the treasury must also guide the county on borrowing. Just like borrowing has become a challenge for us at the national government level, counties also have huge debts, and it's not the same. Some counties, especially the urban counties like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, and so on, have massive debts running into billions of shillings for services that have been. You've heard of things called pending bills. Pending bills are payments that have not been made for services that have already been enjoyed by counties. So all these counties have huge amounts, accumulated billions of shillings in pending bills. So now we want to discuss management of debt. So here we look at county treasury. To submit county debt management strategy paper. So the Public Finance Management Act, together with the Constitution, requires that when the process of budgeting is going on, it must include managing of debt, because debt is part of the whole process. So we are looking at a debt management strategy paper. Every county must prepare this, and it is prepared by the county, treasury. First of all, this document explains the plans the county treasury has to manage debt at the county. What are the plans? The county assembly must be given details of how debt that is there will be managed without risk. Something else that is contained. So, first of all, it has plans. Plans of managing debt. At the county. So the county treasury must explain in this document how they plan to manage the debt. What else? What are the contents of this document? First, the stock of debt. What is the total stock of debt? So you can see here the principle of openness. You don't hide information. You must tell the county how much exactly we have borrowed. Together with that, the county treasury must also include in this debt management strategy, they must include the principal risks. What are the risks of borrowing? Principal risks. Sometimes we hear a rumor that the Chinese are about to sell a national asset. So even at the county, there are risks. Did you pledge an asset as security for the debt? So what are the principal risks? Then it must also have sustainability analysis. So the county treasury must carry out an analysis of the debt, whether it's possible to repay. Is it sustainable? Can the county manage payment of principal and payment of interest, sustainability? Or is the debt too much? Is the debt too much? Okay, so these details must be provided together with another component, assumptions. What are the assumptions? What are the assumptions underlying the debt management strategy? I'll give you an example. If, for example, the county treasury submits to the assembly that they will repay part of the debt, then there must be an assumption that the revenue collected this period will be more, so that part of it will be used to retire debt. So what are the assumptions? If it's a foreign debt, you must be assuming that the exchange rate will remain favorable. Look at what has happened to our Kenya shilling. Our Kenya shilling in January was exchanging at 123. Right now, as we speak, the Kenya shilling is exchanging at 169. Can you believe it? Around 159, 160. I don't know, you can Google and find out. Now, that has serious implications for debt. So the county treasury must state what assumptions they are making. You know, what assumptions are they working with? Something else, they must also state the sources of loans. What are the sources? Who is lending the county money? Is it from the banks? Is it external loans from outside the country? What are the sources of the loan? What is the total amount we owe? What are the risks? Should we fail to pay, what will happen? Is the debt sustainable? Now, this will be prepared in this report called the Debt Management Strategy. Every year. So the debt management strategy must be prepared by 28th of February by all the county treasuries, you know, and fully discussed. Okay, so that's debt management strategy. So this would be an official statement. So once it is approved by the county assembly, again, it will be published. Published means this debt management strategy will be put in the Kenya Gazette or in the website of the county, so that when they start the budget process, the county has all this information. They know our borrowing has reached this amount. These are the risks we are facing. This is the sustainability, so that you can the county can know how to review any proposals of raising revenue brought by the treasury. they can be able to probably approve less borrowing, having seen this. So all this information must be made available by the county treasurer. Next, we are going to look at stages in county government budget process. So stages in county government budget process. Stages in county government budget process. So we now take a look at stages in county government budget process. So usually the examiner can ask you this question. He can ask, can you explain the stages of county government budget process? And for that, he normally awards 9 marks because there are 9 stages. Now, it's important to know, or it's a relief for you guys, the examiner will not expect you to state the stages word for word, but just remember key things which you can put in a sentence for each stage, and you get your marks. So we look at these stages. So when the examiner asks you this, he'll usually award 9 marks, meaning he wants all the 9 stages. The stages in county government. Stages in county government budget process. Stages in county government budget process. So the first stage, which you're going to call A, is planning. You don't start thinking about money before you have plans, like before you've stated your priorities, short-term and long-term. What do you want to do first? When this government came into power, they said their priorities first, they have short-term and long-term priorities. So short-term priorities, they said they wanted to reduce the cost of living. And in their view, in the short term, they could only reduce cost of living by subsidizing. Subsidizing means paying part of the cost, right? Subsidizing production of food. Now, that's how they will subsidize fertilizers for the farmers. They said it will take a little while if they give farmers subsidy. That means if a 50 kg kilogram of fertilizer would go for 6,800, the government would pay 3,000 so that farmers could have the same available to them. For those areas where the fertilizers are available, they said it was going to be available at 3,800. So this lower cost was meant to be affordable for farmers so that they can be able to afford to use the fertilizer to grow bigger acreage and increase food supply. But normally what happens, a 90 kg bag of maize, immediately after harvest, when supply increases, the prices go slightly down. Like now, they've just harvested maize across the country. A 90 kg of maize is now around 4,500. But with time, as time goes by, and the grain reduces, because people, ugali is a staple food in Kenya, unlike other countries in East Africa. So as as we move away from harvest, the prices will start going up until probably they reach 6,000 again. So we are saying the first stage in any budget process is planning. You cannot start with numbers before you plan. So the first stage would be integrated development planning. So stage A is integrated development planning. The word integrated means you have plans both short-term and long-term. They are mixed together. You have immediate plans and you have plans in the medium term. The medium term is between 2 to 3 years in future. Even the Kenya Kwanza government said there are things they wanted to do immediately. That's short-term, and then there's long-term. So there's integrated development planning process, which includes both, so it's integrated. So it's both long-term and short-term. And short-term planning. So you don't have to say it in the exact words, but if you can remember, the first stage in the budget process are integrated plans, both long-term and short-term. That will just be sufficient for you to earn your marks. Then B, planning and establishing. Planning and establishing financial and economic priorities. So you can, the second stage is planning. So they must have financial plans and economic plans. But then you cannot plan for everything because you don't have all those resources. So you must have priorities. I'll do this, this can wait. This one will wait. I can only do this and this. So they must have financial and economic priorities for the county because they cannot support all plans. That is the second stage. Then there's stage C. Making an overall estimation. Making an overall estimation of county governments. Of county governments' revenues and expenditure. So in stage 3, you must have an estimation. By the way, the first stage would be carried out by the planning department. At the county, you have the county treasury, and you have another department for planning. So it's the department for planning that will come up with the integrated development planning. But these other steps will be carried out by the county treasury because these are financial and economic objectives. So it's the treasury to come up with establishing financial and economic priorities. It is the treasury to come up with an overall estimation of county government's revenues and expenditure. Is the treasury. Then D, adoption of county fiscal strategy. What does it mean to adopt? It means the county assembly will have reviewed the county fiscal strategy paper and the contents which we had discussed earlier. And after making any changes they wanted, they take it as now belonging to the county. That's what adoption means. That going forward, this CFSP will be taken as an official guide. It will be part of what will guide the county in the process of budget making going forward. So they adopt it in stage 4. This is now ours. Going forward, we'll adopt the strategic priorities in the CFSP. We'll adopt the policy goals in the CFSP. We'll adopt the fiscal responsibility principles in the CFSP. Those contents, we are now taking them to be our guide going forward as we go through the budget process. So that's things. B. Then E. Preparing budget estimates. Preparing budget estimates for the county governments. And submitting to the county assembly. So they submit to the county assembly for approval. Remember, it is the county assembly that plays oversight role. The constitution has given the county assembly the role of checking the activities of their of the executive. So the budget estimates for the county government must be submitted to the county assembly for approval. That is stage E. Stage F, the county assembly approves those estimates. Approving of the estimates by county assembly. Approving of estimates by county assembly. Now we are ready to implement the budget. We are ready to implement because it has already been approved. So in G, the county assembly will pass the Appropriation Act. The Appropriation Act, to appropriate means to give permission to withdraw money to start implementing the budget. So G, enacting or passing, enacting the appropriation law, enacting the appropriation laws and any other laws. And any other laws required to implement the county government's budget. Then the work does not stop there. The next stage is to implement the county government's budget. So H, implement the county government's budget. So during implementation, the county treasurer will be giving reports, will be preparing accounts of the monies that have been implemented and preparing evaluation reports. So the county treasurer is not the only one that prepares those reports. The controller of budget also does that and submits reports to the county assembly, also evaluates implementation of the national government budget. So county treasury will be preparing quarterly reports to the county assembly on implementation, and the controller of budget also does that. Eh? So we are looking at the last stage here, I. The last stage, I, is accounting. Accounting for and evaluating. Accounting for and evaluating the county governments revenues and expenditures. That is the budget process. That is the stages. If the examiner asks for the stages, those are the stages. You can see there are 9. He normally gives 9 marks. Those are the stages of the budget process of the county government. There'll be another 10 when you look at stages in the budget process of the national government. Those ones are for the county. Any questions? Anyone with a question? Okay. There's another aspect to guide the budget process, and these ones are called cash flow projections. Now, cash flow projections are very important, especially when the national government does not have, okay, resources are always scarce. Eh? So if you have cash flow projections, the national government will. I thought you muted. Right? So we are looking at cash flow projections. So it's a requirement that every county must provide its cash flow projections. Now, these cash flow projections will be very useful, especially when the national government does not have enough money to, especially to pay the share of revenue to counties. Eh? So disbursement of funds will depend on the cash flow projections. So every county must make their cash flow projections. So the county will project how so cash flow projections are important, especially in sharing of revenue between the national government and the county government. we shall be looking at a forum, a forum for national and county government. A forum is like a meeting. We can call it a meeting. So there's a forum for national government to meet with the county. It's called IBEC. IBEC, like that. We'll be discussing this forum later. This one simply means Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council. So there's a council that has membership of all the county CECs, the deputy president at the national level, the chair of the county of governors, a representative from the judiciary, a representative from Commission on Revenue Allocation, all are represented in this body. It's a forum. So it's a national forum having representative intergovernmental at the county and the national government. So whenever there is a stalemate, whenever there are challenges, sharing of revenue, then they find these cash flow projections important. Because the cash flow projection will help them identify what are the urgent needs for a county. So those disbursements are made fast in that order, based on priority. So the cash flow projections will help in that, to that extent. So cash flow projections must be prepared by each county by date 15, by 15th of June. These are budget calendar dates. By 15th of June, every county shall prepare an annual cash flow projection for the county for the next financial year, so that we know within the first 3 months, what is the projected spending by the county. So how much will they need on a priority basis within the next quarter? How much will they need? Now, this will help with sharing of revenue. So the cash flow projection will be submitted to the controller of budget. So the controller of budget must have a copy of the cash flow projection of the 47 counties, and copies will be given to this body, this forum, called the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council. It is chaired by the deputy president. He's the chairperson of this forum. And also, because it's the treasury that disburses monies every quarter, I think latest by 15 of each quarter, the treasury will also be given a copy. And they'll also get a copy of the cash flow projections. So that is cash flow projection. This is just information that all the 47 counties must prepare projection for cash flow. It's a requirement that these projections must be prepared by 15th of June. Then what's important, their institutions must have copies of those projections. The first institution is controller of budget. They must have a copy of the cash flow projection, also Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, and the National Treasury. Because those institutions are involved with sharing of revenue between the national government and the counties. So they must get a copy of the cash flow projections, which are required to be prepared by 15, date 15 of June every year. So this year they've not yet submitted their cash flow projections, but their cash flow projections will be required to be at the Controller of Budget's office by 15th of June. And with IBEC and the National Treasury. Now, do we have any questions up to that point? Anyone with a question? Anyone? Anyone with a question? Before I look at the next thing. Anyone? Okay, the next thing I look at is how the CEC of finance. In case you're forgetting, the CEC of finance simply means the County Executive Committee member of finance, the one appointed to be in charge of finance. At the national level, we call them CSS. The CS for the National Treasury and Planning is Njuguna Ndogo. Yeah? But at each county, there is now a CEC, County Executive Committee member for finance. Now, the County Executive Committee for finance will need to manage the budget process at the county government level, and that is what we want to look at. So next we look at CEC of finance to manage the budget process at the county. At the county government level. So you might be wondering, how would this person, by the way, the CEC for finance is the one in charge of the county treasury, but they are appointed by the governor by approval. Just like it's done at the national government, the county assembly will vet the appointees and approve their qualifications before they are appointed to the county executive committee. So the county executive committee member for finance is expected to manage the budget process at the county. How does he do that? By providing guidelines. These guidelines come in terms of memos, memorandums. So the county treasury, just like the CS at the national level, will be issuing circulars. At every stage of the budget process. So the circulars will contain information that will guide departments at the county and all offices involved in the budget process on what should be done. Now, these guidelines begin on the beginning of the budget cycle. The budget cycle begins every year by 30th of August. By 30th of August every year, so the budget cycle begins by 30th of August each year. Now, how does the budget process, how is it kick-started? It is kick-started when the Treasury issues a circular. A circular contains guidelines that will help support departments and offices to carry on with the budget process. So what will the circular contain? And it's issued at the beginning on 30th August. For example, the circular will contain the important dates, like when the budget process begins and when it's supposed to end. So what are the key dates? A schedule is called a schedule. A schedule of dates for the preparation of the budget. So the schedule will contain what must happen by each date. You know, it will specify the key dates by which various processes must be completed. Okay, so the Treasury will guide the other departments by providing a schedule. Say, by date this process should be done. By date this process should be done. By date this process will be done. Now, that schedule of dates is contained in the circular that the Treasury issues by 30th of August. The next content of this circular are how do you make projections? Remember, every department must give estimates of their revenue requirements and expenditure requirements. So the Treasury will provide formulas or methodology. What is the methodology? How do I estimate the revenue I will require? But as a rule of thumb, normally use the allocation you had last year. So if your department had been allocated, say, 40 million, 100 million, whatever millions, if last year you were not able to exhaust, it's called budget absorption. If your department could not absorb that, then it doesn't make sense to ask for more this year. Generally, that's how it happens. But Treasury will give the methodology. Will tell you this is how you estimate the revenue you require. And usually the revenue will be based on the revenue requirement or estimation will be based on whatever revenue they had the previous year. So whatever revenue they had the previous year is used to estimate the current year's revenue. But the Treasury will provide detailed formulation on how the departments should do that. All that will be contained in this circular. Then the Treasury, since the CEC for Treasury is a member of the County Executive Committee, he already knows what they have passed as a policy. What are the guidelines? What are the restrictions? What are we restricting this year? Are we restricting travel? Are we restricting allowances, sitting allowances? So what is the policy? So key policy issues. Where has policy been set? Around which areas? So key policy areas and issues to be taken into consideration when preparing the budget. Okay? So the CEC for Finance in the Treasury circulars will also assist by providing the key policy issues, like areas that should be taken into account by whatever department when they are setting their estimates for revenue, they're making projections for revenue or expenditure. Then, because it's a principle of public finance, the Treasury must guide on how public participation will happen, because everything must come with public participation. So guidelines must be issued on how do you engage the public who are interested to participate. So the procedures to be followed. What procedures need to be followed by members of the public who wish to participate in the budget process? So Treasury must give guidelines on the procedures to be followed in order to participate in the budget making process. Also, Treasury will provide guidelines on formats. What is the official formats of information that will be submitted? So if you have to submit certain budget information, what is the like standard format? So you cannot just present it anyhowly. You know, there is a format for submitting this information. So the format in which information and even documents relating to the budget are to be submitted. Then all information must conform to the standard budget classification systems. And of course, Treasury will provide any other information on the budget cycle, in the circular. So we will be looking at the same content at the national government level, where this time it is not the CEC but the CS. For Treasury will issue a circular by the same date, 30th of August, to guide at the national level. It will be ministries, departments, and government agencies on how they will project their revenues, their expenditures, the schedule of dates on when activities or key activities in the budget are supposed to be completed, formats in which document and information are to be submitted, and so on and so forth. So that is how the CEC for Finance will guide the budget making process at the county. So he'll simply issue guidelines by circulating or preparing a circular which will provide information to everybody involved, departments, on how they should make their estimates, the formats to be included in the budget. Okay, then the last thing I want to look at today is still related to the process of developing a finance bill of the county, but this time we are looking at a forum at every county. This is a requirement of every county to form a group. And you guys, with your knowledge, you should be part of groups like this in your counties. This forum is called County Budget and Economic Forum, CBEF. So we are looking at establishment of county budget and economic forum. So this one is called CB. Some counties take this very seriously. So if you look at the newspapers, you'll see advertisements, say for Kericho County, Kilifi County, Wajir County, advertising that those who are interested, because this forum is made up of representatives of different groups within a county, like religious groupings. So you're a member of certain religious groupings within the county, also representatives of women groups, representatives of the youth, professional groups like ISPAC, they send representatives. So when you'll qualify as a CPAK, you need to tell ISPAC if you'd be interested, which is your county. Would you be interested to participate in county budget economic forums in Garissa or Marsabit or Kilifi? Because if you choose Nairobi, it will be hard to get because everybody is in Nairobi. But if you choose distant areas, you'll find professionals don't go there. So this forum is supposed to assist the county in consultation. Now, if you remember, we've talked about very serious processes, like making a county fiscal strategy paper, CFSP, where you make strategic priorities. This is not work that can be done by one person or a small team. It needs many minds and a lot of people to be involved at the county level. So this forum discusses this information and provides feedback to the Treasury. So the Treasury will get feedback from this forum on what should be our strategic priorities this year, what should be our policy goals. So it's an additional forum to help the county, to assist the county in preparing some of these documents. Even debt management strategy, you know. So who is who sits in this forum? First of all, the chair of the County Budget and Economic Forum is the governor. Now, the governor has been allowed by the law to appoint some of the CECs, not all of them. He can pick a number, maybe 5 or 6, to sit in this forum. Now, those numbers must be matched by other members who are not part of the county government to balance the discussion. So the professionals like ISPAC will nominate, okay? You will nominate a person. Actually, ISPAC is given 2 positions. Within each county budget and economic forum, ISPAC gets 2 slots. They will nominate, and then the governor will appoint, you know? Then there'll be nominations from labor unions within that county. Again, the governor will appoint. There'll be nominations from youth groups, women groups, the elderly, people living with disabilities, so that as many components of the county as possible are represented. The main role, they'll be holding discussions to give, shall I say, it's a forum that will assist the county treasury and so on, to identify the county's priorities, when it comes to strategic priorities, financial goals. What are the financial goals? Help the county manage or discuss things like that. You know, people could be having very good ideas within this. So this is a very important forum. You will see counties advertising that groups within the county probably should nominate people, you know, as for appointment to these forums, you know. So the County Budget and Economic Forum consists first of the governor. Now the governor is the chairperson, okay? Then he will also appoint other members from his executive committee. Now when he appoints members from his executive committee, there must be a similar number of people who are outside, people who are not employees of the county, so that we can have a balanced discussion. Yeah? So a number of representatives will be nominated, but then appointed by the governor. A number of representatives not being county public officers. They should not be employees of the county. Not county public officers equal to the number of executive committee members appointed by the governor. To balance. From persons nominated by organizations representing professionals like Law Society of Kenya, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, or ISPAC, professionals in business like Federation of Kenya Employers, okay, or Kenya Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They can also nominate representatives for appointment in this forum to help the counties. People nominated dealing with labor issues, women, persons with disabilities, the elderly, faith-based groups, all at the county level. So what is the purpose of these forums? County Budget and Economic Forum, it's for consultation by the county government. People can consult, they can call meetings and consult. What will they consult? They consult on preparation of county plans, strategic priorities and plans, the County Fiscal Strategy Paper or CFSP, the County Budget Review and Output Paper. All these processes we talked about can be highly facilitated through this forum. So this forum will provide information, data that will help the county improve in preparing this, or any matters relating to the budgeting, or even economy in general, they could get very good advice from these discussions, or even financial management at the county level. So that kind of ends our topic 1. So that tomorrow we'll begin on topic 2, which talks about management and control of public finance at the national and county government level. So tomorrow I begin another topic which we call management and control. Management and control of public finance at the national and county government level. So we will be looking at structures for management and control of public finance. And here, the National Treasury will play a key role. We look at how the National Treasury is structured to manage and control public finance. And at each county, management and control of public finance will be carried out by the county treasury. So in short, we'll be looking at establishment of the National Treasury by the Constitution, and responsibilities, and also the key roles are played by the Treasury in management and control of public finance. Okay, so that will be for tomorrow. Do we have any questions? Anybody with a question? So like I told you, I think I've already sent. So if there's anybody in the group that has not seen the soft copy of these same notes, I can resend again. But these are the notes I'm discussing here. So tomorrow I'll be starting from chapter 2. So public finance has like 7 chapters, which I'm hoping to finish by mid next month, so that we have public finance done. We go on with taxation up to the end of semester. So if there's anybody who has not received, or Vincent is gone, anasema asante kwa darasa, asante sana Vincent, tuonane kesho. Kama hakuna swali, asanteni sana. See you tomorrow. Have yourselves a good night. Thank you.